All right, well, hello, and welcome to, I guess it's episode 6 now. I counted poorly last time. So it's episode 6, believe it or not. And as always, we start with, I'm Finn.
And I'm Max.
And today we're talking about...
Discordianism. Nothing to do with the app.
Welcome.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
I think I cut you off, though. What were you going to say about Discordianism?
Oh, it's just the idea that everything's chaos, and we'll get to it later, but it's very funny. And it's a religion we're all members of, even if you don't know it.
And as Max just mentioned, nothing to do with Discord, the app.
Nothing to do with
I
it.
make it very clear.
It's a coincidence.
But before we go down that rabbit hole, I guess we'll just hit the questions and we'll see how it all weaves together here. Where are you? I actually don't know this. So where are you from originally, and why are you at Western?
I'm from Issaquah, so it's about 20 minutes east of Seattle. We have the Costco headquarters. That's our claim to fame. They were going to name it Issaquah brand, but they decided that was too complicated, and they went with Kirkland. And I'm at Western because it's close, but not too close, and they have a good art program.
How long have you been at Western?
I'm a freshman. This is my first year.
Okay, so did you graduate in 2023?
Yeah, 23.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
About a year ago. Yeah.
So you're studying art?
Yeah, I just got into the major.
Like what? What kind of art?
Just general, like, fine arts. Just like a fine arts degree. So right now I'm in a drawing class, which is fun.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
You're in a drawing class, but before you have class, you have breakfast. What did you have for breakfast this morning, Max?
Coffee, and that's usually how it goes. I don't eat breakfast most mornings. I just get coffee. I drag myself out of bed, get coffee, and I go to class. Although, I guess drag myself. My class is at 12:15, so I don't know if I could say it's too early.
Usually, I have just have a protein shake, but I was a good person this morning, and I had an egg sandwich.
Yeah, sometimes if I'm feeling feisty, I'll go get an egg sandwich from Zoe's. But
yeah, that's where I got mine.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
It was I'm glad that they added that to the menu because I like cream cheese and a bagel, but I don't like that every single morning.
They just need lox, and they'll have everything for a good bagel. Dude, I mean, we're never gonna get it, but
never gonna get lox.
No, maybe lox cream cheese. That's the goal. We should petition them.
That would be so good.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, so we met through the Jewish community.
Yeah.
At Western.
Yeah.
So we're both Jewish.
Yep.
And see you around at Hillel and Jewish Student Union events and.
Yep. Mostly just Hillel stuff, but yeah. Try to be as involved as I can. It's always been kind of a weird, because I wasn't raised super Jewish, and it's cultural, not.
Yeah.
So it's a whole thing, of course, but.
Yeah, and I wasn't either, but
still a nice community to be a part of.
The community aspect is great.
Yeah, for sure.
Something that so the first year I was at Western was COVID year, so I wasn't really involved in anything that year.
Yeah.
But the last, I guess it's 3 years I've been on campus. Definitely tried to be involved in that and really found a great community here.
Yeah.
It's a really strong Jewish community, which is awesome.
It's really good, yeah.
But yeah, no, so I'm, I graduated in 2020 and I've been at Western since fall of 2020. So that COVID year and then the last two. I guess this is my third and final on campus year, and I have one more quarter. I'm graduating in the fall, so it'll be 4 years and 1 quarter.
Nice, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So you were telling me right before we started that you made the shirt you're wearing.
I did make it, yes.
So what is it?
It's a decal of the Velvet Underground, which is my favorite band, and so it has the members and then the iconic cover that Andy Warhol painted, and then just the title. Yeah, I made it over in the Student Technology Center, which no one knows about. It's great. I just get to sit and use the Cricut in the quiet of this tiny little sewing room. It's lovely. Yeah.
Western has a lot of those little free use spaces that people seem to not know about. But tell me a little bit about the Velvet Underground for people that might not be familiar.
So
why they're significant to you.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, they're a band. They got together. Their first performance was in 1965. They were assembled by Andy Warhol in his factory, which was a progressive counterculture art collective in the 60s. And it was fronted by Lou Reed, who is one of my favorite, not just musical artists, but like just people. He had a really interesting life. A lot of terrible things happened to him, but he just, and he wasn't a great person either, but he was also upfront about that, which I think is refreshing in the celebrity world, I guess. I don't think he would have liked being called a celebrity, frankly. But yeah, so a lot of his life is very interesting to me, and his biography was really impactful when I read it. And so they made technically 5 studio albums. One didn't have any of the original members, so I don't really count it, and most fans don't. But if you're looking for a recommendation, try their 3rd self-titled. It's my favorite album of all time.
Heck yeah, and speaking of recommendations,
yeah,
what's your favorite movie?
Adventureland, which actually ties to my favorite band, because Lou Reed he's not in it, but he's a plot point.
How so? Well, tell me about the movie. I've never heard of this movie.
It's I'm surprised it's not as well known, because it has like a really big cast of famous people that you have heard. I mean, they were famous at the time. It has Kristen Wiig, Bill Hader, Jesse Eisenberg, Kristen Stewart, Ryan Reynolds is in it. Like, just a bunch of really famous people.
When did this come out?
2007.
2007. Okay.
Yeah, and so it was like while they were all in their heyday, it just didn't do super well. But it's about this guy after he graduates college on his summer vacation in the late 80s. And it has a fantastic soundtrack. You got Bowie, you got great 80s hits, you got Velvet Underground stuff.
Nice.
All it's fantastic.
So I feel like I think it's time to jump into the main topic. And as we were also talking about before we started, your shirt and the film
they all kind of link a little bit, yeah.
So I've heard of Discordianism.
Yeah.
In the sense that I glanced at a Wikipedia article once because I saw the phrase Discordian and I was like, oh no, did some Discord nerd start a religion? Which I'm sure has happened at some point.
I'm sure it's happened.
But
the Church of Neckbeard.
Yeah. But it's not. It has no relation, as we mentioned. It's
long before Discord.
Originated in the 60s,
yeah, the 60s.
Right? So what is it? Tell me about it.
Okay, so basically the church, it has an actual definition, which I will pull up.
Sure.
So the foundational document of Discordianism is the Principia Discordia, which it was written by this guy named Greg Hill. He's a problematic figure, but I think you can separate him from Discordianism because there's a lot of other members.
Sure.
He was just the guy that started. Yeah, he originated it.
So but it got kind of a life of its own.
Yeah, it's become its own thing.
Okay.
And it was an early, a lot of early internet forums and people on the early internet were involved in it, just because of that. Because the internet used to be more counterculture, than it is.
We're
now.
Talking about in the 90s.
We're talking 90s, yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, it started out as this. The guy just wanted to mess with people, and made a church out of it. So it's in the same vein as the Flying Spaghetti Monster and the Pastafarians, but it's before that.
So it kind of originated as almost a parody religion.
Yes.
Okay.
Although they ended up getting it reclassified because it was classified as a parody religion, but in 2003 or 4 they petitioned to get, I think it was a college, to reclassify it as a religion.
Huh.
And the whole point is that basically the universe is chaos, so why not worship it?
Just worshiping chaos.
You just worship chaos, which I really can get behind. Its members don't have to be; they can be members of as many religions as they want, and it says that every single person that has ever lived is a pope of the Church of Discordianism, or the Church of Eris, as some people call it, for the Greek god of chaos. But I can pull up my notes to get some of the other...
Sure, yeah.
So, according to the Principia Discordia, every single man, woman, and child on this earth is a pope. Included in the Principia Discordia is an official pope card that may be reproduced and distributed freely to everyone and anyone, which I have one on me.
So this is your...
This is my prop.
So you want to show that?
Yeah, so I can show it to the camera. You're not going to be able to read it.
That one on 3. Yeah.
Okay. You're probably not going to be able to read it, but I will read it to you. So it says, the bearer of this card is a genuine and authorized pope, so please treat them right. Good forever. Genuine and authorized by the House of Apostles for Eris. And it lists a couple things that you can do as a pope. Everyone has these privileges if you have this card, which everyone can get. As a pope, you are entitled to the following rights and privileges: to invoke infallibility at any time, including retroactively, which is just some power that I think we all need to use a little bit more. So it would be a little funnier if we all decided we were right retroactively more often.
Mm-hmm.
To completely rework the structure of the Oresian Church. You can do whatever you want, and it'll all be holy within the church.
Right.
To baptize, bury, and marry with the permission of the deceased in the latter two cases. So you can technically marry people. I don't know if it's legally binding. It might be. Because these people are the ultimate commitment to the bit people. So.
Baptize, bury, and marry.
Yes.
With the permission of the deceased
Mm-hmm.
in the latter two
Yes.
Jesus?
Yes.
What does that mean?
I have no idea.
Okay.
That's the fun of it now, isn't it?
Yeah.
To excommunicate, de-excommunicate, re-excommunicate, and de-re-excommunicate. No backsies. To perform all rites and functions deemed inappropriate for a Pope of Discordia. So basically it says you can do whatever you want to contribute to the chaos of the universe.
So I have a question.
Okay, shoot.
So how is this not still a parody religion? Or is it still?
I think, we all, as a member myself, right?
Oh, okay.
We're all members by inherently
That's true.
existing.
That's true.
It's a parody, of course, but I think everyone just takes it so seriously because it's funny. It's funnier if you take it more seriously.
Right, of course.
And so I think they got it
Commit to the bit, so to
reclassified.
speak.
Yeah, they're just committing to the bit.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing for me, and what really got me interested in this in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
is it's actually had a historical impact. So you've heard of the Illuminati conspiracy theory, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So it was an actual organization, right? There's a whole bunch of history about it. They didn't do much, but it's basically like, did you know what they did?
The
The actual organization, not the conspiracy.
No, I didn't. Tell me. I don't
Okay, so to make a very long story short, they were basically like, hey, what if kings were bad? And just helped get rid of them.
What time period is this?
They were founded in 1776.
Okay. Oh.
Yes.
In the United States?
No, in Europe, but it was a response to the U.S.
And was it just a group of like aristocrats or what?
Yes and no. It was a group of Freemasons actually that kind of broke off.
Oh, okay, I see.
Because the Freemasons had basically become like old timey AARP. Like you just get a discount at like Brad's Bread down the street. Like it wasn't actually anything interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, it lasted on and off until the early 1900s, but it had fizzled out by then.
Interestingly, mentioning the Freemasons is a funny fact. The first third party in the United States was the Anti-Masonic Party.
I didn't know
and
that.
they ran competitively in presidential elections and had several seats in the House of Representatives and the Senate during like the 1820s and 1830s.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Feel
It's
like
all about being like anti-Freemasons.
Huh. It's like if we had like an anti-woke party now or something like.
We do.
Well, yeah, but like if they were like officially like
Yeah.
advertising as that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, back to
So they were actually people, but they didn't really do much.
They had some light historical impact, but they were another just kind of like
We're gonna have our own little secret club.
club. Yeah, like it wasn't
Yeah.
anything super interesting. Until
But
the
of course, it generated this legend.
No, it died.
Oh,
The people that founded Discordianism brought it back as a joke. So they decided that every consequential world event was blamed on the Illuminati. And it got to the point where they inundated one of the lawyers loosely associated with JFK's assassination with so many letters that it had to do with the Illuminati that he actually started investigating it and started pinning it on the Illuminati. And it got to the point where one of the founders, I think it was Greg Hill, I could be wrong, was actually like indicted and was because he did know Lee Harvey Oswald. They were like loosely associated. And so he became a suspect for inundating this guy with all of these letters about how it's the Illuminati.
What?
Yeah. I can pull up more information on it real quick, but
No, that's crazy.
So
he reignited this whole. He kind of generated this conspiracy.
Yeah, basically.
As a joke.
It was called Operation Mindfuck. That's what it was called.
The project to generate this idea of the Illuminati controlling.
Yes. So they decided that it would be funny if the Discordians and the Illuminati were in like a really long-standing war.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just needed to make sure that everyone knew all the bad things the Illuminati was doing.
Right. And so they were like, bad thing in history. Let's
Yep.
say the Illuminati did it.
So anything that's had a lasting impact on history, it was the Illuminati. That was their MO. Attribute all national calamities, assassinations, or conspiracies to the Illuminati or other hidden hands. So they started planting stories in like zines, just to get as many people's heads as possible.
Well, I would assume that they're taking advantage because of course the Illuminati now is often comes up in conspiracy theory stuff. So I assume they're also taking advantage of kind of underlying fears or pre-existing conspiracies about the New World Order, and that probably leads into anti-Semitism a bit as well. But
there was definitely some of that, but a lot of it was fighting that, and that was the counterculture portion of it.
Right. Oh, sorry. I mean, like that was maybe an unintentional consequence. Yeah. Not that's something that they were like,
of course
we're gonna pin this on the Jews or whatever.
Their whole point was actually that you need to be more careful of what you read.
Yeah.
Because anything can be made to look convincing if you just put enough effort into it, and that was the whole point.
Right.
Was that people need to, because it was during the 60s and 70s where a lot of political turmoil.
Right.
And so that was an important part for them. I have more info on that.
Yeah. Continue. So basically, that they talked about this. They distributed this material, and then people latched onto it and took it seriously.
So it was the conspiracy theory that was the guy who was running it was a guy named Jim Garrison. He was a district attorney, and they managed to pin the JFK assassination on him for a little bit there.
Oh, they were claiming that he was running.
They were claiming he was doing it.
Okay.
He got a note revealing that all the jurors were Illuminati initiates, the telltale sign being none of them had a left nipple.
Okay.
As you know, that's how you find it.
Right.
Yeah. There's a couple other funny little aspects here that I want to get into.
Sure.
So as I have said before, every single person is a pope.
Right.
By inherently existing. However, every pope can promote things to saints, which are a level above.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot promote real people to saints, because only fictional characters can be virtuous enough to be saints. Which kind of ties back to the Discord app somehow. I feel like there's a similar vibe there.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a big Discordian community on Discord.
Oh, definitely. But there are exceptions, like George Carlin is a saint. In the Church of Discordianism.
How can?
I mean, it's George Carlin.
Yeah.
He's an icon.
Yeah.
There's also the rule that everything happens in fives. Just everything, which I think if you think about it for long enough, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you break most things down to that.
Yeah.
Kind of the law of the universe in some ways, but it's just a really fascinating. And I haven't been able to cover all of it by any means. The Wikipedia goes on and on and on and on.
Right. Where is Discordianism at now?
It's definitely not as big as it was, or at least it might not have as big of an impact, just because the percentage of people on the internet that are average people, it started.
Yeah.
Because as we said before, the internet was counterculture.
So a lot of the early adopters of the internet were interested in these countercultural ideas.
Yeah. So that was where it was big, and so you had a decent chunk, a decent percentage of the internet that was involved in that, right? And so it was more prevalent. But as the internet has become more common and more just everyday,
now everyone's on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, because back in the day, to get on the internet, you actually had to do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it was for nerds in their basement.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
I have to do dial up and something modem. What the?
It would make all these weird noises.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't know that it's died out, but I also think that, without getting into the nitty gritty, the guy who founded it, not a great dude. So I think that came out, and so
what made him not a?
Some problems with kids. Without getting into it, yeah.
Okay.
So
that sucks.
Yeah, there's more to it, but again, I don't.
Yeah. That's
not
right.
the. Yeah. So it's an interesting dichotomy, because again, it's grown beyond him by a lot.
Right. It's its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just think it's really funny, and it's a very accepting group, and it kind of always was. Of especially queer people.
No, that's nice.
Yeah. So early on, it was a safe space for them.
Part of that countercultural.
Yeah. And so it ties nicely into what I was saying earlier about just like the 60s and the counterculture movement. Because I think that a lot of that, we're seeing echoes of it today, but in some ways we're also not, where people aren't, how should I phrase this? It seems like a lot of counterculture today in some ways is becoming mainstream culture, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, totally.
Because of the internet, where like counterculture movements very quickly turn into just mainstream.
Well, it got commodified.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like the 60s, the counterculture movement of the 60s generated so many cultural sensibilities and norms
Yep.
that then became, I don't know, bourgeois.
Yeah, I think inherently that's how
Yeah.
it works, because they won in some ways.
Yeah. And also a lot of the folks, or not like the real revolutionaries of the 60s, but
Yeah.
like people at like Woodstock and stuff
Mhm.
were like, or a lot of the hippies.
Yeah, the hippies.
Were rich kids that were experimenting in college, and then they went off and joined corporate America.
Yeah.
And they kept a lot of the countercultural ideals that just became
It just became cultural, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think now you see that shift go a lot faster, and so it's not perceived as counterculture anymore. It's just how culture is shaped, I think.
Right, and because of the internet, you think?
Yeah, because of the internet.
Yeah.
And how quickly things can spread. And I think in some ways that's a good thing, but in some ways it's also a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think what part of it is that ideas or kind of like cultural ideas.
Yeah.
They are generated and then they go out there and are absorbed before before let's say there's a cultural idea, right? Or like I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example, but I'm just gonna say there's a cultural idea. If it's like a political position or it's a kind of transgressive piece of media, type of media, whatever. Let's say like a new type of comic.
Yeah, well, it's an easy example.
That's like a new type of comic that's like politically relevant, right?
Yeah.
Or a new political idea. Before, you would have a small group of it be circulated around a small group of people, so the idea is refined, kind of naturally.
Yeah,
Not
of
like
course.
intentionally, just it's naturally refined, and then it kind of concentric circles out. But now, Joe Schmo can post their idea on TikTok, it could blow up overnight, and then everyone has access to kind of the raw information. It kind of leads to a decentralization.
Well, I think it also means that these people get platforms overnight too.
Yeah.
So that one person has one idea, good or bad, and suddenly all of their ideas can get funneled into the mainstream really quickly. And so you have, people that are actually like trying to be progressive and have countercultural ideas, which I think generally are pretty progressive.
Yeah.
Like you have them getting out really quickly, and then you have people reacting to it. So it doesn't have enough time to like settle in some ways.
Yeah, like the ideology doesn't have time to solidify and form.
Exactly. Like so you have
become like fully coherent. Yeah.
And also like it doesn't have enough time to like sit with people, so they don't get as used to it. Like it seems really new.
Yeah.
And so I think there are a lot of people that see new things like that and just kind of snap.
Do you think that, because I kind of have this, I want to see what your thoughts are. I kind of have this running theory where the kind of instability of culture with the internet is mainly because the internet is still just a very new thing, and it's still, like, culture is still stabilizing and adapting to this pretty revolutionary new medium.
Yeah.
And that we could see a lot of these trends around, like, misinformation or I just what we're talking about, like distribution of ideas stabilize and become kind of more developed and mature as people just kind of grow up with the internet and learn how to use it.
Yeah, agree.
And become more media literate. Do you think that's true, or do you think there's...
I want to think it's true.
Yeah.
But the cynical side of me says no. Just because I think that I think that there are certainly places on the internet where you can find both sides of things and you can find true neutrality. But I also think that those are the parts of the internet that people don't necessarily gravitate towards immediately. Like, I think you need to get past the headlines and past the, like, surface level social media, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because I think things like Instagram and TikTok are overwhelmingly positive. Like, I think that there's a lot of fear mongering around them, and I think for adults that are like not stupid, like what is the vast majority of people, right? Media literate adults.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're harmful.
Yeah.
But I also think that there are still negative effects. Two things can be true.
Of course.
And so I think that as long as those have those little cracks in them where this misinformation is still seeping out and getting into the mainstream, then I think that we do have a problem.
Yeah.
But I also think that that will get fixed over time. The question is just, are we willing to acknowledge the fact that we're all susceptible to it?
I mean, I think that's starting, especially with, I think the 2016 election was like the first
Yeah.
really big example of that, in the sense of there was just a lot more media discourse around like, okay, wow, like the way social media can be manipulated, this has a big effect on the way people think. And like, of course that's true, but I'm more talking about how that idea was talked about in the media. Like people kind of learned about and understood the idea of, oh, social media is operating in a way where certain people are getting fed certain information that is creating a feedback loop. And so I think that idea didn't cause everyone to be media literate overnight.
Of course.
But it introduced an idea into the political, cultural ecosystem that I think, at the very least, I mean, growing up in high school during, like, in the aftermath of 2016.
Yeah.
Like, I learned a lot more about, social media literacy because, like, we talked about it in, like, English class and stuff.
Yeah.
Because in social studies classes. I took a whole class called, I think it was literally called media literacy. And given it was an elective, but I think there's a lot of things that we talked about in that class that we wouldn't have talked about before 2016.
I agree. I think that there is a more widespread knowledge of the fact that we are, to a degree, being manipulated. I don't think it's by a shadowy force.
No.
But I think that there, like, we can all acknowledge that there are things that we are being manipulated by.
I mean, it's market forces.
Exactly.
It's people with pretty open political agendas. It's not like people are lying that they
usually boil it down to they want more money.
Yeah, basically.
Like, that's usually what it is.
Yeah.
But it's sort of funny in hindsight because the whole goal of the Discordians in the first place was like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we just blamed everything on a shadowy group?
Yeah.
And now you have a whole chunk of the American electorate that believes that.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
Oh,
because it started off as like something so ridiculous.
Yeah. And now, yeah,
you replace the word Illuminati with like what Antifa, right? And suddenly
Antifa, whatever the
you could just say woke.
The globalist woke.
Yeah.
And then whatever QAnon calls probably globalist.
I think globalist. Yeah.
And then of course Jews.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's kind of discouraging in a way that that idea that that this movement, countercultural movement, had of like, well, let's give people a lesson in media literacy and have a little fun while doing it.
And it just got
has
so
turned
out of hand,
into like a lot of people believe in QAnon.
Yeah, and well, even just like little things, like just believing everything. Like, I come from a privileged perspective here because I grew up in a house where my mom was a newspaper editor, right? Like, so I've always kind of had a healthy skepticism of most things.
Sure.
Just because that's like that was her whole job.
That's what you learn.
Yeah,
you
check
your
her whole
sources.
job. Exactly, you check all your sources. And so I don't want to say outside perspective, but like I think sort of a somewhat different perspective on it. And I think that has caused me. I've definitely become more aware of my biases in the last couple of years and more aware of where I get my information. But I also think part of it was just something that was more ingrained in me.
Yeah.
And so watching it has been interesting to see how people go about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of it is just having that healthy media diet and listening to news analysis.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm by no means an expert on this, but I think it's really funny that I found the most reliable and most balanced I get is Reddit at this point. Like, their headlines that I see multiple perspectives on the same event. And I think Reddit has a reputation of being not great sometimes.
Yeah.
And it definitely is. Like let's not pretend it's perfect. But I
Yeah.
think of the places I get my news just conglomerated. And now obviously you still need to go check those sources and read the articles, don't just read
Right.
your headlines. But I think as a conglomeration of like this thing happened, here's what all of these different groups are saying. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it is like the conservative subreddit. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like this thing happened in this country and this country's subreddit has things to say.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an interesting perspective to have.
Yeah, and I think understanding perspectives and their ideological concerns
Mm-hmm.
can tell you more about an event. Like in terms of how, like let's say how the way, like the way I'm not gonna think of an example, but
Yeah,
like the way like Fox News describes an event
exactly.
can tell you, oh, okay, because of what I know about the conservative movement in the United States and what their ideological concerns are, that like I can see how this event might be or impactful. Same thing with like NBC.
Of
Like
course,
okay,
yeah.
MSNBC is phrasing their headline in this way. I know that they have a particular set of concerns being aligned with the left or liberalism, I guess. Um,
You also have to be careful because for me personally, as a left-leaning person, like I can see a headline on MSNBC and be outraged, and
mhm.
I have to think for a second, like, wait, no, I'm their target audience. Like, I need
Right.
to look into it a little bit more. And I think that what I've found is most helpful typically is I try to get as much information from the people that the event actually affected because
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones that are telling you their experience.
Lived source.
Lived sources, exactly. This is by no means breaking new ground, of course, but I think that that's typically one. It's easiest to see if they have biases, just because it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
this thing happened to them. Of course, they're going to be happy, sad, whatever. But also seeing what they want to come out of it, I think, is
Mm-hmm.
typically more impactful.
Yeah, I mean that's something I certainly. So I have a history with the Front, the
Hmm.
newspaper of Western. I
Yeah.
was a reporter for 2 quarters, and then I was an editor for 3 quarters, and I was the editor in chief last summer.
Hmm.
And I that experience, I don't. People don't have to go like work in a newspaper, but if you have time in your schedule, you should take a news
Hmm.
writing
Yeah.
at least from the journalism department because um, there's so much you learn. I mean, I just think it's really important to learn about how how newsrooms work.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
like what um, like just have a basic understanding of journalism code of ethics because well one it helps you understand like the news process. Also helps you notice when newspapers are not acting like
Yes.
appropriately
Exactly. Because you see it everywhere.
because it happens like a lot where you like sometimes I read a article and I'm like, wow, I that's was not very well sourced.
No.
Um, you know, like, um, if you're ever seeing a paper, like use a bunch of anonymous sources, that's a huge red
Yeah.
flag.
Exactly.
That's a
Because
huge
there's
red
no way of
flag.
checking these people.
No,
They could just be a bunch of people off the street making stuff up,
exactly.
which is funny but also dangerous.
Yeah, and like a lot of the time, you'll see something like an anonymous Biden administration official said blah blah blah, and oftentimes that is usually reliable if it's
Hmm.
from if you're reading like an AP news article and they say that because a lot of the time like presidential administrations will purposely leak information,
Yeah,
and
there's
so
benefit to it.
yeah, and so it's not like across the board, but that's just one example of
Yeah,
something that you learn in well by doing it, but I think also in news writing
yeah,
that
absolutely.
helps. So yeah, but anyway, we are close to out of time, so I want to ask the last question.
All right.
What are you looking forward to? Whether
Um,
that's in your personal life, something we talked about here, in the world. What's like something positive in the future?
I'm looking forward to going to work tomorrow.
Yeah. Where
I
do you
work
work?
at a record store and I really love it.
No way. Where do you work?
Legendary Vinyl up on Northwest Avenue.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's just great. I love looking at records and talking to people.
Yeah,
It's the perfect job for me right now, and so I'm looking forward to that.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it should be a fun time. Come check us out. We sell. My job is to fix up record players. So yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's entertaining.
I'll come drop by sometime.
You should.
All right. Well, I think that's about it. Thank
Cool.
you all for watching.
Thanks for having me.
Go become a pope.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, you're all already popes. That's the thing. So
all right. Well, get your card.
go. Yeah, go get your card.
Yeah.
It's a good card to have. It lets you marry people. It's powerful.
Lets you change a whole religion.
Yeah, you can do whatever. You can make it do whatever you want. Yeah. Use that power wisely.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Max.
Thanks for having me, Finn.
See ya.
Bye.